Hello, my name is Sai Owusu, and I'm going to be speaking on the effective communication with the media and also on career planning. What is the purpose of interviews with athletes? Because interviews with athletes, they're there to attract sponsors and boost their status. Also, they're there to help to respond to any issues that have currently been happening, whether on the news or the person's personal life, so you can get a catch up on that. It's also used to promote work done by athletes to ambassadors so then they can look into that more. And also for match analysis after a game, so you can see what was happening during that game and you can watch on their performance. Different types of media include social media, which Twitter comes underneath, magazines, internet, radio, and television. Many people use these in their daily lives to get messages across to people. Magazines can be picked up even in train stations and these places where you can see interesting information on athletes. Where people use that to judge, maybe, and internet, people get a lot of information from that as well, because it's not only just one site that you can go to, it's many other sites that you can go to see what's been happening and see what news is up. Radio as well is live. That's what people like the most, like to tune into, so they can see exactly what they're saying at a moment in time, because it's live. Television, there's live TV and there's recorded programs, such as there's some programs where, like BBC, will be live with things that are happening, but there's some that will be pre-recorded. They'll sit and arrange questions that are going to be asked and then they'll speak about them. And social media is obviously what the athlete does. What people have been putting around on social media. The different type of interviews that athletes take part in are television, radio, newspapers, pre and post match. Television live interviews with athletes is probably one of the most used ones, because people can see what's happening live. Some people, because of modern technology, can tune in. They can even call in sometimes and ask them questions themselves. Whereas if it's recorded, it's on television interviews, but the recorded version, you have to wait for it. They have to ask certain questions that it's not really something that people get involved in. But these athletes, when it's pre-recorded, they can say stuff and then they can take it out, watch the recording back, see what they can say to change it, or see if they have to do it again. Whereas if it's live, what's been said has been said and there's no way to take it back. Radio as well. Radio is live, so athletes, they have to be careful what they're saying. Newspaper interviews, athletes be taken, they get journalists come along and they write stuff about these athletes. Sometimes they use quote marks and speak about what they're speaking on as well, and use their exact words. Sometimes they switch it up as well. Pre and post match interviews is probably the most used one, because before and after matches as well. Before matches, they'll speak on what they think they're going to do that game, what they've done to prepare for that game, how they think the game's going to go, if they think they're going to win and whatever. And post match is where after the match, when they look on their performance, their team's performance, and how they think everyone's done. Look at the other team, speak about the game because it's finished now. Significant others to have interviews with include sponsors, officials, teammates, agents, fans, and coaches. Sponsors is a big part of this because they help the player to generate, whether it's money or goods as in items, other than from playing football. Many players are sponsored by Nike, your Rolex, and all these other Adidas and Puma, which helps them in their life to also generate more money, also generate more fame almost, because it puts you on a higher level. Because if you're sponsored and someone else is not sponsored, it puts you higher than them. Officials, you have interviews with because they like to see what's been going on, whether it's games or whatever, personal life. Teammates as well, like to discuss whether it's socially. Some teammates, they talk about stuff They get interviewed by each other, they ask questions, whether it's to do with what happens in the change rooms, training ground, what happens on the pitch, or outside in their other personal life. Agents as well, they have interviews with, because they want you to be at the best team that you could possibly be at, and to be playing to the best of your capability. They don't want you to be falling behind in teams where you're not going to be wanted or you're not going to be improving as a player. Some fans tune into live TV, where now you can speak to players, you can call in, you can speak to them, ask some questions, and see what they're up to. Coaches as well want to see how the players are, to make sure they're okay, because if your player's not okay, then how are you going to know without interviewing them? So it's important for coaches, as they're almost in charge of these players, so they have to make sure that their players are even okay to be playing this game. How to speak in different types of interviews. If you was to have an interview with a radio station, it's most likely that you're going to have to speak carefully. You have to be careful with what you're saying, because it's live. You have to speak formally as well, so then people don't judge you from maybe that this one radio session. Many athletes go to radio stations and they pass off information that shouldn't be passed off, I could say. Also, some say some stuff that they regret saying, but it's a radio, so it's live, so whatever you're saying, you can't go back and say, oh no, sorry, I wasn't meant to say that, and cut it out, because it's live, so it's happening right now. Interviewing live on TV, also, again, because of new technology, you are able to rewind, pause, record on all this stuff, which means that if an artist says something, if an athlete says something, you can go back, listen to it, and keep playing it over and over again if you want. And you can even use this against them. Some people do this, especially journalists. They use previous information or things that athletes have said in the past to bring up back to the future and scare them with. Also, you can be interviewed off live TV, where many athletes have, where you can speak formally, so it's easier to get everything over and done with. But many athletes make mistakes, but because it's not live, you can go over it, change it up, and then make sure that everything you're saying is correct. Goal setting is when an athlete sets himself targets to complete in a certain time. The meaning of SWOT is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths is to outline the positives of the athlete. Weaknesses are the areas that the athlete needs to improve. Opportunities are the things that they can use currently to boost them. Threats are things that could pass a negative influence to this athlete. SWOTs for my athlete Toby. His strengths is his shooting. Majority of shots are on target. He's very good shooting. It's very accurate. He has a high percentage of like on target shots and good shots that keepers are gonna struggle with, which is good for him, which helps him to be a good player in his position, which is a striker. A weakness of his is long range passes, because when he tries to do these long range passes, they don't work too often, and it cuts down on play, get caught in a counter attack, and a lot of bad things can happen from that. He has a good weak foot and strong foot, which means that he can use this to help him to improve, which he uses in his shots and his passing, but he cannot use it in his long range passes. The threat is that he picks up a lot of injuries, which means reversibility will happen. Goal setting. There's three types of goal setting: short term, medium term, and long term. Short term is in a month's time, or just maybe a little bit over. Medium term is from 1 month to 6 months, and long term is over a year or even years. The goal setting for my athlete Toby: short term is to improve his technique to be able to kick the ball far, because if he improves his technique, then especially one technique, say if he improves that one technique, he can do over and over again, becomes consistent, and then it will be working more often. Medium term is to be able to get the ball to the target. For the difference between this and short term is that short term is just kicking the ball using the technique. There's not really a target, but there's just making sure you have that technique to get the ball a bit further. But this one is to actually medium term is to actually get it to the target. including the technique as well. So then you can use the short-term goals that you learn to improve on, you use it into the medium term, which will help you to use that same technique to get the ball to your target. Long term, to be able to use different techniques to get the ball to the target at further distances. There's the different to be able to vary your technique of passing the ball long range is good because you can use them in different situations. Because there's times in matches where you can either use your laces, you can use your instep, or you can use different types of techniques outside the foot. But if you're able to vary all of these or vary them, then you always have a different option. If the instep pass, the inside of the foot is not on, but you can't get that pass on because there's a player in a certain position, then you can always switch and use the outside of the foot. So if this is done in the long term, then it will help him as a player. It is important that athletes have backup plans because they might not either get their first choice or lose competitiveness to be able to keep up with the standards in the main job. Some athletes, they aren't able to compete constantly at the high level, which will be needed in the main job. So then they need a backup plan. So therefore, if they can't compete at that high level, then they have somewhere that they can move down to instead of completely dropping out and having nothing to do. Also, they might not get their first choice, which means that they might be putting in hard work, whatever, but they might not actually be selected for games, for example, which will dampen them. Which, if they have a backup choice, then they have something to fall back on. Career backup plan for my athlete Toby. The career backup plan that is most suited for my athlete is going to coaching. This is because he's already heavily involved in a sport, which gives him good knowledge. He is also coached, so he can use the same techniques he was taught and teach it to someone else. The meaning by this is that he plays for a team, so obviously he's coached by a manager, and obviously he can use points that the manager is using on him to use onto other people if he was to go into coaching, which would be the backup plan. Also, he plays the sport, which gives him already knowledge about it because he will know specific things about the sport that other people won't, because he plays it at a constant level.